as September closes off, let's see what energy there is or what messages want to come about. Firstly, in September, we experience the same energy as the numerology of the year. So 2023 is a 7 energy. Interestingly, the first card that popped out when I just did a quick message for late September, what are we really learning, moving into, moving away from as this month closes, and we're about to approach a super full moon. Really, in a 7 year or 7 energy, we do a lot of thinking, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of spiritual inwardsness. And now that we're coming towards the later part of the year, where we've got a few more months to go, we start to experience a close off of that energy. And it's really interesting that this card popped out because, as you can see, it's really about making choices. And the message I receive from that right now is that in the 7 energy, when we go inwards, we're really thinking about so many things about our life in every aspect, and what we don't want to do anymore like we used to, what doesn't resonate anymore, and what does. What is the either new thing birthing or a restoration of what was or what you wanted, and allowing that to come about again in a newer, brighter way. The angels are showing me just like restoring an old car. So if you had an old vehicle, let's say it's a Valiant 1969, and you know, it's a vintage, it's your soul, yeah? It needs to be reignited. Maybe have some new paint done, a new engine put in, and a new expression of that old soul vehicle. So that's what they're saying there now. So any choices that you're making, think wisely. And they're showing me that it is not just necessarily big choices, but also, or if not just smaller ones, even if it's just everyday stuff. So right now, are you wanting to have a cup of tea or a coffee? Does your soul want you to go out for a walk or scroll on Instagram? You get the idea. So we have small, medium, and large choices there. The wisdom is what we've been learning, and you can see the sun at the top and the 2 eagles flying towards it, and that is what's on the new horizon. What it's showing me now is that we're going to be moving into a year next year where you want to be more in alignment and fully embodied into what we're learning now, and for our self-power to bloom from there. So it's really interesting. So really, cards just speak a story. This is what you've been experiencing, right? That's you. Yeah, there you go. Again, you've been this before, and you've been it recently, if not so right now, right? But it's coming out of that. It's also showing me, as a side note, recent fires such as the Maui fires. It's something that I hold dear to my heart, and I've been following quite closely. I could probably say a lot about that, but I won't right now. So what it's reminding me of is something that I've been feeling recently, which is that a lot of us have really been sort of brought down by recent news events and or collective energy. There's a big kind of battle of truth versus non-truth, misinformation, disinformation, putting up pinboy posters of people in the public eye, making accusations, and all the other stuff and the ripple effects, as well as just that feeling of the matrix as, you know, the kind of system of control around us clasping their claws. And you can feel it. You can feel it as an energy person. You can feel it when you're in the system, and any little thing from trying to pay bills to, you know, questioning why you have to go to work every day at this job that you hate, or whatever it is. We've all got our own versions. And so they've been trying to kind of put a clasp on you, and just think of it as a kind of like a background energy, like a illusory blanket. And it's time to lift off that illusory blanket and come back to the truth of who you are and what you feel deep inside of yourself, and know and allow that truth to become the bigger outer reality energy than the disguise. I'm sorry if my throat's a bit croaky. I've just come out of a session with a client. So again, interesting, another card about choices, making the right choice, which is very interesting. Now see that this person is standing here at the doorway, reflecting on which choice shall I make, right? And what I feel like is that it's interesting, what I'm drawn to in this card right now is see how the shadow of the person is making a V shape towards the green and the blue door, and the entranceway is there. And I feel that the green is the heart energy and the trusting in oneself, and the blue is representing the spiritual energy. So rather than from the lower base chakra reality, the lower energy, or 3D reality, or rather than making a decision through money or through obligation of relationships or other people, making choices from your heart and for your higher self, from a spiritual perspective, and allowing that to be your guide and your doorstep further. They also show me that these two doors become bigger, whereas these two are smaller, to further validate this idea and to show that you're moving out and forwards like a funnel shape where you're expanding. That expands you, whereas the other doors might entrap you, or it's kind of like going on a less effective timeline or a less enjoyable timeline versus a higher timeline of what's true to you. This card here is very much about, right, it's like the Tower card. It's bringing up 9/11 in my mind, which is also an expression of that conflict energy, of the lower energy of the collective control clasp, that is disruptive and makes us feel this way. And so that's where you're feeling discombobulated and where your life is in pieces and you're just having a battle within yourself. Your battle within yourself is an expression of the outer energy, where there's an external battle or so-called battle or battles around you in the environment or on the news or in the chaotic, frenetic collective energy. So this is calling you to go back within, to get grounded. There is hope, right? And this is how simple but profound that cards can be. Hold that hope within you. And you know, this is the Book of Wisdom, putting all this behind you. So we've come from conflict and defeat, news events or situations such as the fires or anything else that might remind you of, or your own battles and conflicts and so on. And see all the yellows and the oranges, because it goes to here. And now this is like the light coming in, the light of hope and faith. And this is your Book of Wisdom, where you can look behind you at this as a past as the month close off, and prepared to close that Book of Wisdom and move forward in a newer, higher way with that sense of knowledge. For that is like a priest who holds a Bible, so like that kind of a spiritual figure. And so much light comes out of that book of knowledge, whatever that represents for you, that higher wisdom. And the dog reminds me of, well, dog is God spelt backwards, okay, so you can think of it that way. Dog is also like your companion, so it reminds you of, so in your higher consciousness, it reminds you of your guides, that you're not alone, that you have that guidance and companionship. And it also, interestingly, in the first card of Tarot in the Major Arcana, the Fool, there is a little dog there too as you begin a new journey. So it's kind of closing off and a new beginning. So endings and beginnings as we move away from an old cycle and into the new. So in this transitory phase, it's important to remember that there is hope. And if you see, I just got drawn now as I quickly glanced at the card, there's actually a figure inside that yellow orb there. And that is you and your higher self, or whatever you see in it. You might see in that a figure of Jesus or an angel or an ascended master or, light being of some type. So it's all that, right? But it's you also and the higher you. And so bloom forth from that higher you energy, catapult yourself out of that lower, darkest and seeming blanket of clasp. Release that, because there's a higher truth that we're to step into the next month. They are basically the messages or the little story interwoven through the cards and, messages from the angels. So hopefully that helps you during this time and the next while. Lots of love, and write down below what you received from the cards.